In this video, I will show you how you can go from complete beginner to realistic renders in D5 while using its AI tools. Make sure to watch the video all the way through the end and do not skip any steps because every single second is crucial in order to replicate the same result. So first of all, if you do not have D5 render installed on your computer, you can go in the link down below and you can go ahead and download the free version. So if you click here at free download, this should start downloading for you pretty quickly, and then it will go ahead and you can find a bar similar to what I have here in my SketchUp window, and this works in any other kind of native modeling software for you like Revit, ArchiCAD, etc., Rhino, or whatever. Now this model right here, you can go ahead and download it in the link below and you can follow along through the tutorial. So first step is to go right here and click the connect to D5 render button. Okay, so now our D5 render window is opened. Once this is opened, the first step would be that this terrain right here, we do not need it because we already have something set up from SketchUp. So right here at objects where it says terrain, let's just click this eye icon to hide it for now. Now all of the different options inside D5 in terms of the user interface, we're going to take a look at later on. As of now, let's take a look at how you can navigate in the D5 render window. So firstly, in order to orbit around your model, you can go ahead and hold the right click on the mouse and then move your mouse around wherever you want to have the view from. Or you can also go here at this button and then you can go to the fly mode. And right here, if you actually hold the right click and move around, it will only change the angle from which your point of view is. And then with the WASD, you can walk around just like in any other video game if you've ever played any before. So it's very self-intuitive. Now you can also go right here and then you can go ahead and increase the speed of movement. So now as you can see, it's moving a lot faster. If you want to go even faster while you're holding the WASD buttons, you can also hold the shift key and now you can see that it's going to move even faster. Now if you want to go up and down while still maintaining the same angle, you can hold the E key to go downwards or the Q key to go upwards. And also this walk button is basically the same thing as fly, it's just on the eye level view. And it doesn't allow you to view it from any other angle rather than just from the height that you set right here. But this one, we are not going to use that often. We're going to keep it at fly. Cool. So now let's start by actually setting up our camera angle in D5. And I usually always keep this as the first step when starting out, because once we set the frame of the camera, then we know what kind of objects and what we will capture in the final image. That way we do not spend time on unnecessary element. Right here on the top left, you can see something called the scene list, which is kind of like setting up a camera. So we're going to add a new scene and then we're going to go inside it. And then in order to edit the scene, we're going to go and click edit camera. And now let's go ahead and try to fix the angle that we want to take the render from. So first of all, you're going to see a few options showing up here at the right area. So firstly, let's tweak the field of view. The field of view is basically the width of the lens of the camera, in the sense how much we want to capture from that angle. So we can increase this and you can see the camera angle get wider. And for example, we can get a lot closer to something like this, right? And then here, the projection mode, we're going to set it to 2-point perspective. Basically, the 2-point perspective, what it does is that it keeps all vertical lines in a 90-degree angle. So we're going to click that. Now you can see that those are straightened out a little bit now. And then the aspect ratio is basically the height and the width of the image frame. And this highly depends on what kind of media we plan to use the render on. So if you want to use it for, let's say, a presentation which will be shown in a TV screen or in a computer, I highly recommend to use 16:9 because this is what fills the whole area. If you're going to use it just for social media, a 9:16 is very powerful if you're going to use it for like vertical formats in Reels, in Stories, and Instagram, or even a 3:4 for like a post on LinkedIn or even an Instagram post. But for this instance, we're going to keep it at 16:9 because that is exactly what we need in this tutorial to see the most that we can here. Now, one more thing that we will do is that I'm going to go ahead and increase the field of view even further. and I will get closer to the image. And I think I want to keep it something like this as of now, the camera angle. And every time you change the camera angle, make sure that you go right here and click update scene, because this will make sure that anywhere that we move around, if we want to explore, we can go back to the same view without having to guess where we wanted the camera angle. We can just click here once, and that will take us back to exactly where we had our camera. Now keep in mind that with a scene, not only does the camera angle save, it also saves all the lighting options and the effects that we're going to take a look at in just a second. By the way, as you can see, D5 is super self-intuitive and it has unlimited potential, which you're going to see while we go through this course. So make sure that you actually go ahead and download it from the link in the description. It's absolutely free for you to get started and create your first realistic renders while you follow me along in this video. Cool, so now let's take a moment to see how we can populate our scene. So if you go here in the top left, you will see the assets option. Once we click it, you can see that there are a bunch of different options that we can select here. So we could select something like a 3D model, materials, particles, even pre-made templates for scattering, which we're going to take a look at in just a second. And you're going to be absolutely blown away by the variety of assets that D5 has in your disposal. So right here, we can go ahead and we can search firstly for something like curtain. So as you can see, there are a bunch of different curtains that we can choose from, and there are ones that are animated if we wanted to create a video. So for example, I can choose something like this one. We're gonna wait a second for this to load. In the meantime, you can see there are a bunch of different categories very well organized in D5, or you can either use the search bar, which is what I usually do if I know that I want something specific. If I just want to scroll through and try to get some inspiration and test things out, I always go here through the category. So we're gonna go ahead and we can download the curtain. We can place it right here. And now, as you can see, there are the axes on which we can move this on. So let's just move this upwards. And then over here, you can also change the location and optimize it. So for example, let's rotate it by 90 degrees, or maybe even by 180 degrees, 270. This is the one that I'm looking for. And we can also stop the animation just to not mess things around with us. So we can move this over here. Let's also move this upwards. And now what I can do is that since this is a bit too short, we can go here at size, we can unlink it, so that way it is not scaled uniformly. And then the Z axis, we can increase it just like this for it to increase in size. So this is how we can add a curtain. It's pretty simple and it works great in this example. Now that is how you can add objects one by one. Now something else which is so cool is that if you go here at scatter, you can basically find pre-made templates for you to download and actually input in a surface, in a material, or even an object itself. Now this image right here is based on a reference that we found online. However, we're still gonna give our own spin in a few of the things. So for example, if I wanted to use this flower garden combo right here, I can just click once, and now we can just click on the terrain that we have here. We can click create, and in just a few minutes you will see it fully populated. So now, as you can see, in just one click, this whole area is populated with very high quality vegetation, in fact. So for example, we can select this one, and then we can make them a lot shorter, and as you can see, something like this works in order to populate the terrain. Now we can select these ones as well. We can also lower the possibility of those appearing, and we can also lower its scale, something like this, which now looks a bit more balanced because it was way too much a little bit earlier. So something like this in terms of this vegetation here definitely works. Now we can also do is if you go here at model and then you go here at nature, we can go to broadleaf, and then we can choose this path icon, and then we can go ahead and choose a few different trees which we would like to place onto our model. So let's say we choose these 5, and then we can go ahead and select through the path tool where exactly we want them placed. So for example, we can start from here to here, and then we could go upwards on the hill, and then we can click done. We can go back to the scene, and then what we can do is we can optimize these in terms of increasing the number of them. We can change the direction of them, make them look a lot more natural. We can give them random spacing, that way they look placed a lot more naturally. We could give them a little bit of offset in terms of the line at which they are placed. We could give them a random size as well, and then this drop toggle basically makes it so they fall on the train fully and they are not floating, right? So this is basically how we can place manually, or even through a scattering template, or even using the path tool to distribute certain items. As you can see, super easy. And once again, and I highly encourage you to go ahead and download the free version of D5 in the link below to follow along and create the amazing render that we will be doing in this free course. Now we're gonna leave the actual assets like this as of now, and in just a second we're gonna move on to lighting, and then maybe later on we can go ahead and populate a little bit more of the interior while we give the final touches. So as we go into the lighting, we can see that there are a few different options on which we can modify the lighting in our render. Firstly, I just want to start by saying that lighting is one of those things that has the highest impact on your render, and it can make or break your render. So firstly, we can change the lighting by going here at the geo sky, and basically we can move this around to change the angle from which the sun is coming from. We can also change the north offset, which basically also changes the angle from which the sun comes from. And then we can add more clouds if you want something more gloomy. We can change the thickness of the clouds, the density of the clouds, the speed at which they move if we want to create an animation. And then we can add fog and all of this other stuff, which we can take a look at in just a second. This is not a bad option if we actually wanted to create something quickly. However, there are much better options if we do want to maximize the impact of the render. Now we also have the custom option, which basically lets us choose the sunlight intensity. So the higher the sunlight intensity, the more the sun is going to basically shine. The sun disk radius is also very important, because the higher the sun disk radius is, the softer the shadows will be. So if I get closer to a shadow, for example, these ones, I can just go here and you can see that if I lower the sun disk radius, you can see how sharp the shadows will be. But if I move it upwards, you can see that these get softer and also have some kind of blurring in the edges, right? So I'm gonna leave it at around 8 for now, and we can go back to our scene here. Now, this is also not an option that I prefer that much. You also have something which really makes it very easy for you. If you go here at Studio, you can basically find a lot of presets by going to D5 Curated, and you can see recommended presets, for example, and you can scroll downwards and you can use the Serious Sunset preset. What this does is that it automatically mimics a sunset atmosphere. That way you do not have to go ahead and tweak everything manually yourself, which I absolutely love, because it just makes the workflow a lot easier and it lowers the time spent on manually tweaking everything in order to create a perfect image. So basically you go over here, you choose the template or the preset that you want to use, and you can double click in order to choose it. Now, as you can see, there are this is not ideal. The reason being is that the auto exposure is off, firstly, and secondly is that the skylight and the background are way too high. So we could probably lower the skylight and the background in just a little bit, but I'm going to show you how you can do all of these yourself. So this is an option. It's not ideal, but you can go here to effect and maybe lower the exposure, and as you can see, this kind of looks a bit more balanced than it was before, way too overexposed. Now, one of the coolest features that I like about D5, and probably one of the best features in my opinion, is that if you go here at the top right, you will see this little icon called the AI Atmosphere Match. And this is not perfect all the time, but what it allows you to do, especially with the lighting and setting up the atmosphere, is that you can upload a reference image, and then D5 will try to match that into your existing model. So I'm gonna go ahead and upload our reference image, and let's snap the current view, and let's see how close this actually gets to matching it. We can wait a few seconds, and then we can apply it right onto our model. So as you can see, this is actually not that bad. Unfortunately, what I can tell is that the sun is being a little bit blocked here. So maybe we can go and turn on the sun. Let's also turn off the volume light here. and then decrease the fog a little bit. But I actually like overall the fog. I just think it needs a little bit of tweaking, and maybe we could also rotate the HDRI a bit to let the actual sun shine through. Let's go ahead and lower the fog even further. Let's turn off this vegetation path for now. So this is not too bad in terms of the mood that it creates. It's actually kind of similar to the mood that we have in the reference image. However, there's no background and there's still a lot of stuff missing, which is exactly why my favorite option in order to set up the lighting is using an HDRI. So an HDRI is basically an image that we use to wrap around our model, which mimics real life lighting and also gives us a background to use for the image. Now you can go ahead and use a site called holyhaven.com. I'm not sponsored by them. However, they have a lot of cool options which you can download for free. Also, D5 right here has a lot of different HDRIs that you can use from their library. So you can use the default library. So for example, if you use the sunset one, you can see that in just a second, this exact type of setting or this exact type of mood will be used into the model. So as you can see now, we have the same exact scene right here. So what I will do is let me turn off the fog completely for now, and now you can see that we have a actual environment wrapped around our model completely if you look around. And AI, you will see later on, will help us mask this a lot easier. That way there's not a big difference between the terrain that we have set up and the terrain which is actually imported. Now if you go back to our image here, I'm going to go ahead and firstly upload an HDRI which I personally downloaded online. So I'm going to import it. We're going to give it just a few seconds, and I'm going to show you everything in detail, how to optimize your exterior lighting in D5. So now that this is imported, you can see that this is in very low resolution in the background and doesn't look clear at all. However, that's just a preview, and it's going to look a lot better once we actually go ahead and render it out at the end. So what we will first do here is that I will go ahead and find a rotation in which the actual mountains look a bit lower, because that may be way too much. So maybe we could go for something like this. I think this looks pretty good. And then what we can do is we can also optimize here the actual lighting, which comes from the HDRI. So this is the background, how dark or how bright we want the background to be. Obviously the default is here right in the middle. We can go ahead in the effects and keep the exposure at auto for now, and maybe later on we could tweak those ourselves. And then right here we can also use the rotation, as you saw earlier, in order to find the best looking background for our image. Right here we could also change the temperature of the image, basically the sky color, the skylight, or even the background only. And right here we can play around with the sun. So basically we will keep the sun at follow HDRI, and what this means is that the sun will shine from the brightest point in the HDRI, which is right there. And this makes it a lot more realistic because the angle of the shadows will match the angle from which the brightest point is from the HDRI. Now we can go ahead and turn on the fog. Maybe we want it in higher height. Now the reason why we want to have fog, that way we have a little bit of distinction between the foreground, the midground, which is our main object of emphasis right here, and also the background. Now I will increase it in height. We might as well also have a lot more fall off, and also the level of fog, I think we're going to keep it down to that point. So let's keep it at 0.05, and I think that is good enough to make a distinction, or 0.003. Yeah, I think we could keep it like that, the actual fog. Now we do have a few issues here with the actual effects of the image. So let's go to the effects tab. And right here you can see that we can apply a LUT. A LUT is basically a filter, right? So you've seen filters online where it changes the way that the image looks. This has been created by AI, so maybe we could even lower it a little bit to something like this. Now another issue that this image has is this bloom effect. So this is way too much. I'm gonna lower it. And then also the lens flare here, I don't want it to have that much lens flare, so I'm going to lower it even a bit further. And as you can see now, it looks a bit more balanced. Something else that we might need is that here at the color temperature of the sun, this is way too warm. So let's go ahead and cool it down a little bit. That way it looks a bit more balanced. and then we can go ahead and update the scene right here. That way all the changes we make are actually saved. So now a few other options of the effect tab that we want to take care of is actually wanting to have a little bit of a vignette. The vignette basically darkens the corners of the image. We do not want it too much, but just a little bit. That way it doesn't add too much attention to unnecessary spaces that we do not want to emphasize. We can update this as well. And then we could also increase the saturation just a little bit more at 0.1. Now another thing that we can add is right here at the bottom of the effects tab, we can go here at the ambient occlusion. We can turn it on, and basically what this does is it actually makes the corners and the edges a bit more realistic. If you can see, we can add the ambient occlusion here with a radius. What this does is that actually makes them a bit darker, and it makes the light bounces a lot more realistic. So we could add the overlay. So as you can see, these corners actually look a lot more realistic. We can increase the radius or even decrease the radius to something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these pieces of furniture, or at least hide them in the SketchUp window, because I want to add our own ones here in D5. By the way, if you're enjoying and you're liking how this render is slowly coming along, make sure you actually go down below the description and download the free version of D5, because honestly, this software just changed my workflow forever in order to create realistic renders, and it only gets better and better once we get to the AI tool. So make sure you follow along and do not miss the opportunity to create some amazing renders and add better work to your portfolio and move along in your career. So now we're going to take a look at how we can set up the materials. First of all, we can go ahead here at the assets of D5, and then we can go to material. So we're going to go ahead and then we're going to type in here stone. And now let's scroll downwards and let's try to find something which would work. So large stone, medium stones, all of these could be something that we can actually consider. These ones could work as well, but I think these are a bit too regular. So let's go ahead and try out these ones. I'm going to use this material. We're going to click on it once, and then we are going to go ahead and apply it on this wall. Now, as you can see, this has been applied. I overall like how it looks. And the best thing about this is that you do not need to go ahead and then optimize everything manually in terms of the depth the material has, the reflections. They're all automatically applied by D5 itself. What I do not like about this though is that it is a bit too dark. So what we can do is we can go to the base color map, we can click this at more settings, and we can lower the saturation a bit and increase its brightness for something like this. Now we can slowly bring up the saturation, maybe decrease the brightness to something like this. And then what we can do is, for example, if I want these to be a bit more creamy, or I guess a bit of a different tint, we can go at base color, we can go at hex, and then we can choose something like this to give it an overall tint on how they look, right? So this is exactly how we set up the stone material, and as you can see, it honestly looks pretty realistic and it is not bad at all. Now we can go and tweak all of these one by one. So for example, we can go ahead and type in concrete, and then we can find concrete wall, concrete bricks. We can find even tiles which are from concrete. So I'm going to go ahead and download these, and we're going to use these for the patio over here, and also the area right outside of the pool here on the left, on the right. So let's go right here, let's choose the concrete tile, and let's actually use it right on the patio as we intended to do. So I think that works all right. And now we can go ahead and find this other rough concrete. We're gonna head and select it, and then we can apply it all over on these blocks right here, on the sides here, and also these walking blocks right here. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna select this metallic part right here, and in order for the metallic part to look realistic, for all metallic materials, we're gonna go ahead and put the metallic slider all the way up, and also lower the roughness. As you can see, now the metallic parts look very, very good, and slowly this image is coming along very nicely, and I think this will turn out just great. Now we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna select the pool right here, and then here at the material template, you're gonna see that there are some special materials that you cannot optimize through sliders. However, you're gonna click once and you're gonna let actually D5 optimize it for you. So we're gonna click at water, And then as you can see now, this looks like a water material. If we actually want this to look a bit more bluish, we're going to go ahead and we can apply a base color just like this. We can increase the depth, decrease the depth of it as well, refractions, flow velocity on how fast this moves, as well as if we actually wanted to have a bit more waves, we could do that by changing the size of it like this or lowering it. However, I think that something like this looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and let's update our scene. Now, something else which is very cool that D5 offers is that if you select a material, for example, these blocks right here, you can go ahead and you can scroll downwards and you can choose rounded corners. And honestly, for most of the materials, you want to turn this on because in real life, there's rarely any 90-degree angles. Otherwise, you would be cut on your table or anywhere you'd put your hands on. So we're gonna click this and let's put the radius for these all the way up because I want these to be a bit more weathered. And then we can also choose the walls. We could have them rounded corners, but not as much as those. And then also this wooden kind of shade as well. And then we could do the same for the metallic material. So probably most of these you want to have rounded corners for them to look more realistic and overall better. So right here for these window shutters, we're going to select the material, and then in this instance we do not have something ready to import that is a green painted wood in D5. However, what you can do for all of these maps here in order to add the reflections, add the depth, is that D5 actually can generate AI texture maps. So if you just click once, in just a second, you will see that this will have depth and it will look a lot more realistic, or at least it will let you kind of optimize these yourself. So as you can see now, these have depth. We can lower the depth of it. We can also decrease the roughness in order for it to reflect, increase the roughness, or whatever type of other modification that we could make it. We can go back to our scene right here and deal with the rest of the stuff. So even here for the interior, we could type in paint. So for example, we can choose something like white wall paint. We can apply it right there. And then we could also make it a little bit more on, I guess, the pinkish side, which we could go right here. So we could leave it just like that, the interior painting as well. And now I think as one of the final steps here, we can add some more assets like the outdoor furniture, a little bit of potted plants, etc. So let's go right here at assets. I'm gonna go here at model. We're gonna go to outdoor furniture. So we can go outdoor, we can add outdoor furniture right here. We can scroll downwards and maybe try to find something which would fit. So we could go ahead and basically put these outdoor loungers right here next to the pool. So one of them right there, we can rotate it. So let's just get a little bit closer. And now the closest chairs that I can find to a reference image is something like this, which is called the Peter outdoor chair, and we're gonna upload this into the patio right here. Now, one cool thing about placing assets in D5 is that you can actually change the materials even after you place them. So for example, we could make these a bit more beige, and then these, for example, we could make them look a bit more like wood as well. Or even this part here, we could make it completely white. You could change the base color map as well and increase it just like that. Now let's add some more furniture here in the interior as well. We are going to go ahead and go to indoor furniture. Okay, so as far as the modeling and adding everything here goes, I think we're pretty much there here. Now this is one of my favorite parts as well, which we're gonna go ahead and export this. And before we actually go render it out right there, we're gonna go ahead and turn on this AI post channel, which will let us edit things separately in AI pretty easily. And I think this part is one of the coolest parts to experiment with your renders. So go ahead and export this and follow along with me. Okay, so once this shows up, you can go here to AI post processing. Let's click on our render, and this is how the render looks raw without any AI. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad, but I just know that it can look a lot better. So let me show you how we can do that. Right here, go to AI Enhancer. Let's put this to 0.8, and this will enhance our image as it is right now with this lighting, and it can enhance some of the materials and some of the ways this image looks right here. However, what we can do is if you go to AI Style Transfer and go to Realistic, we could add a little bit more of a sunset. So basically we can use the style transfer weight, which shows how much of the style we want applied here and how much we want the structure of the image to keep the same. So we want the structure as much as possible, and the style transfer, I usually find the sweet spot is at 0.4. So let's go ahead, press style transfer, and we go ahead and do this for a few different styles. So also autumn here, let's keep it 0.4 and also 1, and then let's go here and do the same thing for this spring option here as well, AI style transfer, and also finally let's keep this as the night option. Let's see what this serves for us as a night render. And finally, what I also want to show you is that we could also add a style transfer from a reference image, just like we did earlier in the AI atmospheric mask that we used with lighting. However, this time around, let's see if it is maybe even more accurate. So we can turn this all the way up and leave the style transfer weight just like that. Once all of these are done, I'm going to show you all of the results one by one, and we can choose the favorite final render, the hero image of this whole free course. Okay, so the results from AI are ready, and let's go through all of them. So the first one, this is how the raw render looked like, and this is what it looks like with the enhancer. And as you can see, if you go really close here, you can see the stone here a lot higher quality, and also the vegetation. I mean, there is a huge difference in how the materials look. The mood is not bad. I honestly like it quite a bit. I like it kind of blended in the background with everything else. It made it look more 3D, so this is pretty cool. And then let's go with this one, the sunset one. Wow, this is actually very good. There's just a few things that I would change. So this would be concrete all the way here, and this wouldn't be wood, it would be curtain instead, but that's pretty easy to fix. But I really like how this one's look. I think this has potential to be the favorite one. This is the autumn one. Wow, this is actually very good as well. So this one got this area right, the curtain is not right, and then the pool here is not as good. But I still really like this. I think this is very cool. This is the spring one. This is very good as well. Wow, so this is hard to choose from actually. I think I might have to go with this one in the end, but let's see. And this is the night one. Honestly, I could see how this one could come out better if there's more manual editing in terms of where the lights are placed, but this is a bit too random, so it's not looking as good. And this is the one with the reference image. I mean, this one looks very good as well. I think my favorite one has to be between these two. I think this one is actually my favorite, so this might be the hero image. But anyway, hope all of you enjoyed this free course. Hope you learned something, and I really hope that you went through and followed this tutorial. If something's not replicated, please go back and follow it all over again, because it's really worth it to get every single detail through and have a project like this in your portfolio. Once again, if you want to elevate your architecture renders forever, go ahead and download the free version of D5 and follow along, because this is definitely worth investing time into elevating your architecture career further. If you want to follow along another free course of D5 with another project, make sure to watch the video right here.